I grew up in a densely forested rural area in central Virginia. Like most kids my age, I spent a lot of time playing in and around the woods. One day, my best friend and I stumbled upon a beautiful creek while exploring deer trails. It was a rare find, a perfect spot for us to play. The creek was wide and deep enough to swim in, with soft, mossy banks to rest on. The water was cool, clear, and constantly running, so there were no copperheads or mosquitoes. We were thrilled and decided to have a picnic there the next day. The following afternoon, we set out for the woods around 1 p.m. We entered at the same spot as before, thinking we were on the right path. However, we soon realized we had taken a wrong turn. Instead of finding the creek, we came across a small clearing covered in thick ferns that we had never seen before. Hungry and tired, we decided to have our picnic there and had a great time playing and joking around. But when it was time to find the creek again, things took a turn. As we continued walking, the woods felt darker and colder, making us uneasy. My friend kept looking back nervously, and after about half an hour, we stumbled upon an overgrown bathroom in the middle of nowhere. It was a strange sight, but we brushed it off and continued, jokingly calling it Bigfoot's bathroom. After an hour of walking with no familiar landmarks in sight, panic started to set in. We weren't focused on finding the creek anymore. We just wanted to get out of the woods. I suggested following the sun to reach a road or find help, but my friend insisted on another way. Fear and frustration caused us to argue, and in a moment of stubbornness, we decided to split up, each going our own way. Not long after we separated, I started hearing footsteps behind me, about 100 feet away. I assumed it was my friend catching up, but as I slowed down, the footsteps matched my pace. They continued for hours, and I couldn't decide if it was my imagination or if someone was really following me. To ease my nerves, I found a sturdy stick and kept walking. As darkness fell, I stumbled upon Bigfoot's bathroom once again, realizing I had been walking in circles for hours. Confused and frustrated, I sat down on a log and let out my frustration. Suddenly, the footsteps behind me grew louder and started running towards me. Fear took over, and I sprinted in the opposite direction. Now, here's the truly terrifying part that I usually leave out when telling this story. While running through the dark woods, I heard what sounded like church bells. I looked up and saw the darkest cloud I had ever seen. In the middle of it, there was a black void, and the surrounding gray clouds seemed to swirl. Looking at it made me feel sick, like the nausea from staring through binoculars for too long. The sound of the bells was deafening, booming from the hole in the cloud. At that moment, a sense of overwhelming dread washed over me. Something inside me screamed that if I didn't run away from that cloud, I would disappear forever. I didn't want to run towards the thing chasing me either, so I made a sharp turn and ran in the opposite direction. It was pitch black, and I ran blindly through the woods, crashing into branches and stumbling every few steps for what felt like another hour. Eventually, I collided with a low fence and flew over it, hitting the ground hard. Gasping for air, I realized I couldn't hear the bells anymore. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I recognized the fence as a marker of a nearby farm. I walked up over a hill for about a mile until I reached the back of the farmhouse. I explained what had happened, and the farmer kindly gave me a ride back home. When I finally walked through my front door, it was past 9 p.m. My friend had returned home shortly after we split up and assumed I had too, so she didn't tell anyone I was lost. My family hadn't been looking for me since it wasn't unusual for me to stay out after dark. They were shocked when they saw me, beaten up and crying. Nobody had realized I was missing. To this day, I wonder how long they would have waited to come find me if I hadn't stumbled upon that fence, and if it would have been too late.
Have you ever experienced something similar to the terrifying tales we shared today? Tell us your stories down in comments. We might share them in our videos too. See you in the next episode with new stories. Stay fine till then.